since our tour kept calling the inmates crazies or dogs or like just like really dehumanizing names, and like to see people who are really mentally unstable being put in a room with no stimulation and like completely naked and then like expecting them to like behave and to be rehabilitated is just so backwards and twisted, and it made me just like really sad and like depressed.
Yeah, it was interesting when he first, started, we were going into the different rooms and he started saying, "Oh, what fun persons do you have?" Yeah.
Are there any fun ones?
Yeah.
What's like if fun? Someone who's having like a mental breakdown.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'd ask them like, "Oh, like your job," and they're like, "Yeah, it's fun. Like, are you getting pleasure out of like, I don't know, like disciplining people?" Like,
yeah.
It's kind of dirty.
It was definitely frustrating when we entered that first room, and that's the first time that they started saying, "Oh, what fun ones do you have?" When they were all lined up, and it's interesting because they were all like they're having a smirk in their face, like if this was some kind of
as if they, like,
entertainment.
It's like a power complex. Like they like get off on like having the power of dominance over someone else, and it's just like such a twisted like reality that they face.
Yeah. Do you have any other reactions or thoughts?
Not right now.
How would we see the contrast, right, of like going into Francisco Holmes and sitting together with some of the men that have been out now for just a couple months, not they haven't been out for years, and to see the other perspective, right? It's interesting that we then come here and we see what the real circumstances are.
It's like no one can really describe it to you unless you like go and see it for yourself. Yeah.
To North Kern State Prison. And this is the first time for me we had like a mass exposure of those who are in prison, and then we got to walk through the yard, which was really impactful for me. I got to see like the inmates up close, and then when we entered, they were like, "You can say hi, but you can't engage in conversation with them too much." I was like, "Oh, that's kind of harsh," but I really enjoyed the experience. We also had an opportunity to stop and talk to, I think, 3 of those who were in prison at like the classroom, and got to get a little bit of their shared experience, which was really good. But then at the end, it became very rushed, which I was very frustrated with, because I really just wanted to sit down and probably take an hour and just talk to them, but we couldn't get that experience. And then walking back through the yard into the exit, it just looked like every person in there was somebody that I knew. They looked like either my dad or my brother my cousins or my friends, and so that kind of hit home for me at the end because they all just looked like somebody that I had already met. So it's a process. I'm processing right now. Yeah, and now we're at like the first headquarters of
The
it.
first headquarters.
UFW, which is also impactful. So it's just like it's a big history day for me, and it's a big reflection as well as trying to look forward. So I am processing. But yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking to the people was a little interesting too because like we're sort of forced to think, or not forced to think, we sort of have a misconception of these are like really tough guys that like if you talk to them they're gonna be like really scary or anything like that. But talking to them just immediately sort of made you realize that they're not like that whatsoever. Like it literally broke any misconception that I had. They're really soft guys and they really like to talk a lot. They're like
Yeah.
me. And honestly, it's just heartbreaking because they all have oh yeah, we messed up, and the blame's put on them, and then they're expected not to do it again. Even when we like started, the people like the vice president of affairs or something like that, or the vice president of the prison was like, yeah, they're here because they messed up. Like they're here because they're prisoners and they messed up and they did something like that. They just pretty much messed up. Like it's their fault and that they're here. And like at the very end, he was like, yeah, some of them were like just did something wrong, minor or something like that. They're here for a little bit, and he sort of contradicted himself a little bit because he did say like, yeah, some of them were probably just in like the wrong place, wrong time or something like that. And I was like, dude. Like if you're putting the blame on them and then you say that they're in the wrong place, wrong time, or like there's also issues with like what if they were misconvicted or like it was the wrong person that they caught, which happens a lot. They're all treated the same way. But yeah, it was just an interesting like way to see. Oh, it was an interesting trip to see like that contra opposed. I just hope we could have seen like the prisoners or talked to the prisoners.
Yeah,
a little
like
more.
gone into the cells, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that torture. That seemed like torture. So like if one of them misbehaved or had to wait or did something, they'd have to like strip them to their boxers, put them like in this cage, and they had to stand there all day, which was really messed up. And the guy, like the vice president, tried to justify it's like, well, it's their fault. We can't like be soft on anybody else because then we have like 4,000 inmates here, and we don't want them like thinking that we're gonna be soft. Because if you make an exception for one of them, then you have to make an exception for 3,999 of them.